Jeff Cavalier, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. This time, actually, nice to come out to California.
Yeah.
Get a little workout in.
Yeah, we have a studio this time. Last time, I think we were in a rented apartment in New York City.
It worked.
I said it then, I'll say it again. You're the man. I've been watching your videos and following your training advice for many years. I would say Mike Menser, Dorian Yates, and you. That's I've merged the principles and
very high, humbling praise for me, for sure.
Well, you're 50, never touched gear. That's slang for steroids. You're not on TRT, you've never done it.
Yep.
And you look amazing. I know you're very disciplined with your diet, your training, but you're married, you have 2 kids, you put in the work all over life, and you're a testament to what's possible if people do things right. So today I want to talk about a number of things, but something that I believe is not discussed enough, which you discuss a lot and has just been transformative for me because I also happen to be 50, is we both know that the big things, like doing the regular compound multi-joint lifts regularly, that's all critical. We know the big stuff is critical, and people talk about the big stuff all the time, but you talk about the small stuff that makes the big stuff possible for decade after decade. And I credit you for fixing my back pain. I credit you for the fact that I basically have no pain despite training very hard for, more than 3 decades. So let's talk about the small stuff, which is not actually the small stuff. I think of it as the kind of hinges and bolts on the system that allow that system to work. So low back, shoulders, neck, these are the pieces that nobody wants to train. No one wants to think about. No one wants to talk about. So let's start right there. How can we keep our lower back strong and pain-free while also doing things like deadlifts and squats, etc.?
I'm glad you're talking about all of this. Obviously, it's like it's such music to my ears. But I think the background of being a physical therapist is what set the stage for my focus on these things. Because when I was younger, pre-physical therapy days, I did all the dumb stuff too, and I did all the things, just the big things, and realized that it wasn't necessarily a path to longevity. But in the immediate and in my 20s, I was literally breaking down then. Like I had knee pain then. I had back pain then. I had shoulder pain then. So I think people who are in their 20s these days have the luxury of having access to videos like this, where they don't just say, oh, that's just maybe a hard workout. Now they start to say, well, maybe I'm actually doing some damage here, right? Maybe I do need to pay attention to the smaller things. And when you have enough videos out there that showcase these small things, for instance, you mentioned back pain. We talk about a major cause of back pain not being structural back pain, right? A lot of the times, the back pain that we suffer from in our lives is not surgical. It doesn't need surgical treatment. It just needs the right addressing of the muscles that contribute to that, or how we allow muscles to get tight that shouldn't get tight if we did 4-inch of motion on certain exercises, right? So in particular, I mentioned the glute medius, right? And the glute medius is a muscle that is going to control hip position, hip movement. So if it's controlling the position of our hips, that means it's controlling our pelvis. If our pelvis is tilted or twisted or forward or backward, obviously the spine is literally adapting to the position of the pelvis beneath it because it's connected through the sacrum. So how is that not important, right? So all these muscles that connect to the pelvis that change its position are inadvertently going to change the position of the low back directly to the lumbar spine. That is going to likely cause dysfunction down the road if you don't address that. So it is these little tiny muscles and these little tiny exercises. So I made a video years ago about an exercise that you could do to help to loosen up if there was a knot in the glute medius, right? An area of spasm, a localized area of spasm. Because when the spasm's there, you adjust the way you move, right? You're in pain, so you're trying to move around that spasm. Something as simple as a leg raise down and back while holding down that pressure point on the glute medius helps to alleviate some of that discomfort and that spasm to the point where you could restore normal motion again because you're not avoiding pain. And all of a sudden the back pain goes away. There was nothing structurally there. Fine. That's a great video. It helped. I think 50 million people have seen it.
We'll put a link to it. This is the one where you should watch the video. This literally erased my back pain, what I thought was going to require surgery. And you lie on your side, one leg, is in front of the other, toe down on the ground, you put it up and back. Jeff provides a beautiful description of what is essentially a very simple movement. But if you do it properly, the pain evaporates. It's wild. And I thought it was a back issue, but it was a glute medius issue.
Yeah. Again, you can feel referred pain anywhere. But what happens next is great, you solve that area of spasm. Why do we get spasm? Oftentimes it's because we're providing artificial stability to an area of weakness. Because spasm is basically the muscles holding on and saying, I need to protect this area. And so if the muscles around the low back are protecting that area, there's a reason for it. Probably because the muscles that are supposed to be stronger are not strong enough. So that doesn't mean that you do this one thing and you're done. Yes, you might have no back pain that day, or you might have relieved that episode, but it means that there's an area of weakness that could benefit from strengthening it. So you come back and you start to do glute medius strengthening. I demonstrate an exercise where you put yourself up against the wall, right? And you stand on the leg outside the wall, furthest away from the wall. And you let yourself drop. You just let your hips drop, right? They get lazy. And when they drop like that, the only way you can get them level again is to slide yourself back towards the wall. And that's abduction of the hip that way to get you back to level again. That is a glute medius dysfunction, to get you back to that level position. Well, ironically, every time you lift a foot off the ground to walk, you're getting a pelvis that drops side to side, right? Every time you go in single leg stance, the pelvis is going to drop a little bit. The people that have less control of that have more of what they call a Trendelenburg gait, where the pelvis rocks side to side as they walk.
Like if you were looking at them from behind the back,
Yep.
Pick your preferred opposite gender folks, and then the butt swinging from side to side.
You might look good on Instagram, but it's not gonna do good for your back, right? So you go back and forth. Well, all that uncontrolled motion starts to wreak havoc, and eventually those muscles start to say, I got to provide this artificial stability. So what do? I spasm. And so if you don't extend the plan beyond the fix, how do you then build that strength up to prevent it from coming back? And so I'm all about not just the fixes, but really about the preventative things you can do to stave this off long term.
So we'll talk about the structure of a really good basic program. And many people talk about that, sets, reps, splits, etc. But let's just assume for a second that somebody listening to this is training their lower body twice a week. Mm-hmm. They're doing compound exercises and some isolation exercises, but they're dealing with some back pain, or they're not. They're in their 20s or 30s, or structurally they're blessed and they're not dealing with it. What are some additional things that we would call small things that make the big things possible for much longer, and also make people stronger at the big things that people can do? Would you say back hyperextensions? Would you say watch your video on glute medius training? What would be the exercise to insert, and how many times per week to do it, and when?
That's a good question. So reverse hypers are an amazing exercise. I like doing them because they're very easy to do anywhere. You don't have to have resistance on them. They make a great machine that actually provides resistance, straps over your legs that you can lift additional weight on. But the challenge for most people, remember, they're chronically weak in these areas. So even just the body weight lifting of their own legs is going to be a significant enough challenge to get overload. But you can literally do it on like your bed in the morning. You can get up, you lay enough of your torso on top of the bed so that you're not falling off the bed, but you can just have your legs hanging off your bed and your body up on top of the bed and do a reverse hyper.
So raising the heels
so that
up, they're parallel with the floor,
as level as you can get them. Again, the bed's a little soft, so sometimes you kind of dip down as you're lifting your legs up, but it's sturdy enough that you can get to almost a parallel position to the floor. I like to make sure, we'll talk about this, but like you're moving, the muscles are doing the work and not momentum, right? So you want to hold that contraction briefly at the top to convince yourself that you actually were able to perform the movement. So you get up, hold it for a second. And I think what's important on that too is people who don't have the strength in their glutes, because it really is a glute weakness issue, not necessarily a low back issue. A lot of times it's weakness in the glutes that's transferring the load to the low back that can't handle it. And people get the symptoms in the back, but it's the weakness somewhere else that's causing that. So I like to focus first and foremost on the glutes, glute max, glute medius, to make sure that they're strong enough. And again, if you test even big time athletes, we would test their rotational strength of their hips. Some of the strongest athletes, some of the biggest squatters, some of the best lungers, right? They're lunging over 200 pounds. You put them in position, you try to bend their hip into internal or external rotation of their bent knee. They can't resist it at all. So it just goes to show you that all the squatting, all the big lifts aren't enough to counteract the smaller muscles, right? There are different functions. A rotational muscle of the hip is not a sagittal plane muscle of the hip. It has a different function. So they all have to be strengthened. So along that line, we will do the reverse hyper as a good sagittal plane exercise focusing on the glute. When they get to the top and I tell you to contract it, squeeze so you know that's the glute that's squeezing and doing the work, not that you're arching at the low back. That you're using the muscles that are already overworked in the first place. So get that up there, squeeze, reinforce that's the glute that did the work. great exercise. The glute medius, like I said, the hip bump, super easy exercise. You could do it anywhere against
the wall.
Against the wall. You could do it anywhere against the wall. Anything you can.
It is like a hip bump. You basically you raise the leg that's closer to the wall, like 90 degrees. Outer one, you're standing. It's almost like you're trying to slide that hip that's along the that's closer to the wall, up the wall. So it's like a kind of like side booty bump to the wall, but sliding it up.
Yep. And this is sometimes where you have to invest in this. The small things, but they're also small investments. A little mini hip band, the little elastic bands, they're just loops, the little fit loop they're called. Put it around your heels, lay on your belly, bend your knees to 90 degrees, and then just try to open your feet apart, right? Spread your feet apart. So now you're strengthening rotation of the hip. Or hold one steady, let one leg, it's a little hard to show here, but let one leg come a little bit in front of the other and then try to cross it over the other one. So now you're getting external rotation of that hip. So you're working external rotation against resistance, internal rotation against resistance. Super easy things to do. You can attach a band around your ankle, and then you can do lateral hip swings, but with a component of rotating against the resistance of the band too. So I'm moving my leg out and rotating out at the same time. How do you do that? Just focus on your toe. If your toe is turning out, your hip is turning out. If your toe is turning in, then your hip is turning in. So you don't have to focus so much on how do I move that. Just focus on what the foot is doing, and you turn it as long as the knee's going with the foot, right? You're not just spinning the foot. The knee and the foot go together. So there's simple things. And again, you might need a band or a mini band or something to get these smaller muscles more specifically, but it's $10, $15 for a band. It's well worth the investment if you can get rid of these long-term recurrent issues that keep coming back and causing agony every 2-3 months as a reminder of what you're not doing.
I'd like to take a quick break to acknowledge one of our sponsors, David. David makes protein bars unlike any other. Their newest bar, the Bronze Bar, has 20 grams of protein, only 150 calories, and 0 grams of sugar. I have to say, these are the best tasting protein bars I've ever had, and I've tried a lot of protein bars over the years. These new David bars have a marshmallow base, and they're covered in chocolate coating, and they're absolutely incredible. I, of course, eat regular whole foods. I eat meat, chicken, fish, eggs, fruits, vegetables, etc. But I also make it a point to eat 1 or 2 David bars per day as a snack, which makes it easy to hit my protein goal of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And that allows me to take in the protein I need without consuming excess calories. I love all the David Bronze Bar flavors, including cookie dough, caramel chocolate, double chocolate, peanut butter chocolate. They all actually taste like candy bars. Again, they're amazing. But again, they have no sugar and they have 20 grams of protein with just 150 calories. If you'd like to try David, you can go to davidprotein.com/Huberman. Right now, David is offering a deal where if you buy 4 cartons, you get the 5th carton for free. You can also find David on Amazon or in stores such as Target, Walmart, and Kroger. Again, to get the 5th carton for free, go to davidprotein.com/Huberman. Today's episode is also brought to us by Our Place. Our Place makes my favorite pots, pans, and other cookware. Surprisingly, toxic compounds such as PFASs or forever chemicals are still found in 80% of nonstick pans, as well as utensils, appliances, and countless other kitchen products. As I've discussed before on this podcast, these PFASs or forever chemicals like Teflon have been linked to major health issues such as hormone disruption, gut microbiome disruption, fertility issues, and many other health problems. So it's very important to avoid them. This is why I'm a huge fan of Our Place. Our Place products are made with the highest quality materials and are all PFAS and toxin free. I particularly love their Titanium Always Pan Pro. It's the first nonstick pan made with 0 chemicals and 0 coating. Instead, it uses pure titanium. That means it has no harmful forever chemicals, and it does not degrade or lose its nonstick effect over time. I cook my eggs in my Titanium Always Pan Pro almost every morning. The design allows for the eggs to cook perfectly without sticking to the pan. Right now, Our Place is having their biggest sale of the season. You can save up to 40% site-wide now through April 12th. Just head to FromOurPlace.com/Huberman. Again, that's FromOurPlace.com/Huberman to save up to 40%.
Once I realized that the glute medius was causing, for me, back spasm issues that were severe enough that it was immobilizing, but then it was resolved by the information you provide in your videos, I started doing the hip slide up the wall movement. I still do that. The reverse hyper. And then the one that you put in a video, and again, we'll put links to these, that I found a little bit more of a setup, but seems really useful, is where you take some sort of rope or dog leash and you put it around your waist, and then you actually have a weight between your legs hanging a couple inches off the floor. And then the goal is to walk. It makes you kind of have to kind of monster walk. And the idea is to not let the weight swing and hit your feet. Now, I know that sounds really awkward, but it really works because, and I know it works for a number of reasons. And by the way, all this strengthened other lifts for me dramatically. I was kind of at a sticking point with a number of lower body lifts and upper body lifts. And it really seems like it helped create a real stability in the lower back glute area. What is that dog leash thing doing? And it's very simple, right? Just tie a weight between your legs and then you're trying to walk, but not let it swing. Why does that work?
Anytime you can take these smaller exercises and bring them a little closer to actual function, I think it's better. It's better carryover. So if you're talking about actually being on your feet and walking, that's a step towards function. That's you're going to be more useful, I think. But what you're doing is, as I mentioned before, every time you pick up a foot off the ground, you're in single leg stance. So when you're in single leg stance, if you're not contracting the glute medius on the side that you're standing on, your pelvis is going to drop. You're going to drop in the side because you're not balanced anymore. You're going to drop towards the up leg. You may not drop if you're consciously trying to stay level because you're firing the glute medius. But for someone that has a weak glute, you just have them stand on that one leg and you're going to see that pelvis drop. So when you're doing this test and you're adding the weight to the equation here, the weight is really to create a pendulum effect, right? Because when you start to move anything, that weight's going to want to go in an exaggerated way. So what we're trying to reinforce is, okay, can you do this and take these slow steps in these alternating single leg stance and prevent that weight from shifting so much, i.e. because you're dropping too much, that it would hit or bang into the other leg. So you have to be able to walk slowly through single leg stance and not allow enough of a drop by having good contraction and control of the glute medius so that it would minimize the weight itself. It would quiet the motion of the weight itself. So you're reinforcing how hard can I keep this thing engaged as I walk. And if you could do this, the faster you could move yourself and still have minimal displacement of the weight would be a good indicator that, wow, you're really starting to get good control and strength in that glute medius. Another thing I like to do is we call it a suitcase lunge, right? So you do a lunge where you offset the weight on one side. So you carry it if I'm going to lunge forward, I put it on the opposite leg, right? Hold on the opposite side. What that's going to theoretically do is, obviously, when I lunge forward, I'm going to want to fall to the side of the weight. Picture having even like a 50-pound weight or a 60-pound weight in your hand. It's going to want to go that direction. In this lunge position, if I can straighten myself out and keep my torso rigidly in place the whole time, then I can really strengthen that glute medius on the opposite side. And what's cool about that is it's also done in conjunction with a sagittal plane lunge. So now I'm starting to train in multiple dimensions and planes at one time. So a lunge in this direction, suitcase carry, offset, only one dumbbell, not on the other side, obviously. You're going to get that desire for the body to fall towards the side of the offset weight. And again, that starts to shift the pelvis up. The only thing that will keep it down is by keeping the hip in, abducted, and level, and that pelvis stays level. So we'll do that with a lot of our athletes and work up to some pretty heavy weights there too. And again, it is a kill two birds with one stone type exercise because you still get the benefits of the lunge, which I love as an exercise.
So let's say somebody is going to do some hip slide up the wall or reverse hypers, if they're lucky enough to have a gym with a reverse hyper machine or even just a high bench or a hyperextension machine, right? Classic hyperextensions.
You just go face inward.
So the upper body moves and for classic hyper heels.
Which I like too, by the way. Like that's more direct low back strengthening, which is always good. Like we can always strengthen our low backs. So those muscles need to be strengthened. But again, I would say more often at times the source of the low back pain is coming from the muscles beneath them that are weak, chronically weak, like the glutes.
Okay, so reverse hypers, the hip sliding up the wall approach, maybe the dog leash with weight between legs. Doesn't have to be a dog leash, folks, but you get the idea, to try and minimize the hip sway. Should those be done at the end of a lower body workout when the lower back and glutes are partially fatigued or very fatigued, or done separately at a time when they're really fresh?
2 times. I think you could do them on a dedicated day at a dedicated time. So I approach my ab training as ab training, and I always keep it separate. I just like to focus on, I'm going to do 5 to 10 minutes of core strengthening right now, here and now, separate from my workout, because I don't want it to be an afterthought. I think it should be, it's a key component of what I do to keep a strong core. So I want to focus it, and I don't want to add it to the end of my workout when I'm already mentally checked out, right? So I do that. I think when you start to have these issues that require special programming, right? Then you should own that special programming because it's yours. It's what you need specifically. Others might need things for their shoulders or for the rotator cuff. But like whatever special programming is, do it as a small routine on its own day at its own time, or even it could be on a workout day, but a separate time that you just go through as a routine 5 minutes to 7 minutes 3 times a week or so. That's it. If you want to put it on a training day, it's actually not a bad idea to put these smaller muscle exercises or smaller focused exercises after your bigger training. Because A, you're not going to compromise your big training and the goals that you have for that. But you also are pre-fatiguing some of those bigger muscles that are going to want to dominate these small movements anyway. The compensations that you're going to see on these small movements are always going to be the big muscles trying to kick in and do what they've always done, which is take over. And you're trying to get them to not. So if you can pre-fatigue them a little bit prior to doing these small exercises, you're actually setting the smaller muscles up for more success.
Yeah, if I could travel back to my teens, and I started lifting when I was 16, and 20s and 30s, I would have started doing all of these things a couple times a week, or even just once a week, even before there was any pain. Because I had the same, I don't know if it's arrogance or just ignorance that, oh, you know, pain, like that's what old guys talk about. Like I have no pain, I feel fine. Like, but I think by training a certain way without pain for a very long time, it's almost like the spring is getting compressed, because it means that unless someone has perfect mechanics and they're covering all their bases through other sports and things of that sort, it's almost like the stronger you get, you're just setting yourself up for one of these things to go. And in my case, it was this lower back thing. And for some people, it's their shoulder.
When you're young, those things that appear as post-workout soreness even can be masquerading for long-term pain problems and dysfunction down the road, right? Because again, when we're young, we just feel, hey, well, I'm sore. I had a hard workout yesterday. I'm a little stiff. Again, we get through it. We manage it. It's not that interruptive of our life at that point. So we move on. But I believe that those are many examples of what is potentially happening beneath the surface, that if you continue down that road, that normal workout soreness becomes more chronic joint pain, discomfort, movement limitations, and we also lose range of motion as we get older. So if we're not focusing on actually trying to maintain that, it just starts to pile up. And it's one of those things where we look back years later and go, wow, I can't believe I've lost this much range of motion, or I can't believe I've gotten to this state, when it really was just accumulation of many, many of those days of doing things where you weren't paying attention to all the little things. So it doesn't really creep up on anybody. It's like it's happening, and it's happening every day. It's not like you can't intervene. You just have to be aware of what you need to do to intervene.
You have a post that really humbled me, and people are going to laugh. They're going to be like, I can't believe you can't do that. Well, now I can do it. I'll explain what it is in a moment. But a longevity test.
Oh boy.
That includes test of balance, strength, and inner fortitude. And that's the put your shoes and socks on, standing on one foot, obviously one foot then the other, not sitting down, but doing that in the morning every day. And I'll tell you, if you're training hard, that lower back's going to ache a little bit when you first thing in the morning. This is a very cool test. And I force myself to do it now. And I have to say, a lot of mornings, I'm like, I just want to sit down and put my shoes on, and I got this puppy now and he's grabbing my shoelaces, which makes it even more dynamic. But in all seriousness, it's a very interesting, very simple test. If you could just explain what it is, folks, trust me, you want to do this every single day.
So they call it the old man test. Is gender neutral though. It could be old woman test. Everybody is fair game. The goal here is to simply put your sock and your shoe on the floor on both sides, lay them down in front of you, untie your shoes, make them sure they're loose enough that you can get them on your foot. Stand on one foot to begin the test, lean over, pick up that shoe or pick up that sock, put the sock on, pick up that shoe, put it on, tie it, and then put the foot down. Only after you've tied the shoe can you put it down. And then go and do the other side. And it is difficult. It is very, very difficult. It happens to be one of the tests that I do a little bit better than other tests. But we were joking before. I told you that about twice a year, I still get back pain every now and then. And mine came from leaning over to put my sock on the other day. And my whole back felt like it was going to blow up on me like that. So there's a lot going on inside the body when you're doing this, right? Why would my back all of a sudden seize up on me when I'm going to put on my sock? Because you don't realize the responsibility that those lumbar paraspinal muscles have in trying to control even just leaning forward. And they're trying to make sure that you're doing it at a pace that's safe for your spine. So doing this every day is a little mini workout for those muscles. And again, I think we tend to get so lazy as we get older and complacent. And so that once you start sitting down, you're just going to sit down when you put on your socks and shoes. What's the need to get up and do this every day if I'm comfortable doing this sitting down? Or wow, this was easier because I sat down today. You can't be seeking easy. If you seek easy, you're going to get old a lot faster. So this test is testing your balance. It is testing against some of the many dynamic control from those muscles in the low back. It's testing your ankle mobility in a way, because you're going to get a lot of this going on, the perturbation through your ankles and your knees. And it's testing your hip strength. Because again, once you go on one leg, you're now talking about pelvic control the same way we did before. So you have to have good strength there. But it's not uncommon for people to not be able to pass this test. But with practice, like anything else, you're training these muscles to get stronger, and you're training your balance, and these are all skills that can be learned and improved. They're all trainable. I actually put a video out not long ago about different measures of longevity. And one of them was that test. Another one was pull-ups. Another one was the number of push-ups you could do. We could talk about these after, but the number one was like going back to your glute medius strengthening. Can you lay in a side-lying plank position with the top leg up about 45 degrees? You can keep it stacked. It's a lot easier to stay in a plank position. You raise that leg off of the other. Now it's all relying on that lateral pillar strength of the underside hip, the one closest to the floor.
So one arm down,
or elbow
stacked
on the elbow.
Okay, heels stacked at first.
Yeah, at first.
Okay, on your side. So side plank, not just lying on your side.
No, side plank.
It's not the picnic date stance. It's lying on your so side plank, and then you're going to raise the top leg up to make a 45 degrees.
And see if you could hold that even for just 30 seconds. And it's difficult. You'll feel a lot of shaking. You'll feel a lot of sagging of that bottom hip, because you're asking your glute medius on that underside leg to hold you up into that position. So the beauty about that series of tests, though, is that they're all trainable. So if it's trainable, it's fixable. You can improve as you have, right? You're now much better at the test, the old man test. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the old man test. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There are mornings when I want to cross one leg over the other, kind of go into what do they call it? That like kind of pseudo crow pose they talk about in yoga to like rest the ankle, and then it's like, And sometimes people are probably laughing at this. Go try it, folks. No, some people might do it just right away. It's very easy. Many people will find this difficult, to the point where like, I don't think I can do this, but you quickly get good at it.
Yeah, strength is not even like a determining factor or predictor here either. You could be very, very strong and do incredibly poorly on this test because you're not strong in these areas, or you could just have bad vestibular balance, right? It could be that alone. Once you start to lean forward or look down, you don't have good control. But it is testing a variety of things, and if you do poorly on it, you can look a little deeper, investigate a little deeper through additional tests to try to find out exactly where your weakness is. But it's a good broad spectrum test to see how good your functional balance is.
Yeah, some people might wonder, how do you work up to it? There's something called Velcro shoes. No, I'm just kidding. Or slippers. It's easier, right? It's going to be quicker.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth trying. And I think identifying these weak points, I think is just so critical. And I'm probably going to say this 20 times during today's recording, but for the young guys and gals who are thinking, oh, like that thing is so easy. Trust me, with time, it's the gradual creep of little things that you stop doing. I'm going to add the side plank in, because I just haven't been doing much planking, not much isometric stuff. And I'm sure that I've got a weakness somewhere along the chain of muscles that's required to do that properly.
Yeah.
And what I love about these sorts of small things that support doing the big things for much, much longer, hopefully forever, is that they don't have to be done as part of the standard workout, and they can be incorporated into, like you're watching something on Netflix and you just kind of move some furniture out of the way and you just do these at that time, which is really cool and important, because it's not just about like an additional workout, because people are slammed. They've got so much to do, and like, how am I supposed to do all this stuff and view sunlight and this and that? But it's straightforward.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that you've done better than anybody is practical implementation of the things that are going to benefit people, that are not time consuming or overly time consuming. They're easily implemented. A lot of what I focus on is when we're talking about these drills or exercises to do, a lot of them are body weight, or a lot of them are done in minimal space, because the more elaborate it becomes, or the more time consuming it is, or whatever it is, there's just so many reasons for people not to do them. And they are going to be viewed as the extra stuff until they become adopted and they realize how much they're helping them. It's always going to be viewed as the extra stuff originally. So to get someone to buy into the concept, open up the time frame where they can do them. Let them do it during watching Netflix. Let them do it while I'm on the floor doing some crunches after I've already done my workout. Like, open up the restrictions so that you're still getting the effect, but you're minimizing the prescription of it. So it's so demanding people don't want to do it.
So one thing that I don't think we've ever talked about on this podcast is that many people don't just work out. They also play a sport. Maybe they do golf, or maybe baseball or softball. Maybe they swim. In every sport, there
obviously dominant patterns of movement. And there's a lot that's out there about how to train to improve those patterns of movement. I'd like to ask the opposite question. Let's say somebody played baseball or golfed or whatever their sport was, and now they have imbalances that are the consequence of having done some activity like a golf swing over and over and over, standing in a particular way, and they have pain and they are thinking about longevity, not just of their golf game, but of everything else. Tennis, whatever. People just pick your sport. I think this is very common and not commonly discussed. What can people do to compensate for these unilateral movements or for these, always left foot forward type stance things that won't compromise their game, but also overcome any pain and imbalances? I've always been curious about this.
That brings up the point of like how sport specific training has evolved over the years. There was a time when sport specific training meant doing everything that you could to replicate the motions of the sport and trying to strengthen those movement patterns. I think gladly we've moved past that stage of training, because you can get better at that movement pattern by simply doing that movement pattern. You can increase the strength of your entire body by increasing the strength of your entire body. So that the focus of the weight room can be to do your general strengthening bilaterally, right? Regardless of what movement pattern direction your sport favors, and improve the strength there and the function there, because the carryover to your movement pattern is there. Like when you get stronger and then you go back to swing a bat, you're going to still have the increased strength that you built in the weight room in your swing of the baseball bat. And you can throw harder if you're a pitcher, or you can throw further if you're a quarterback, if you improve your overall arm strength and your upper body strength. A lot of upper body throwing strength has nothing to do with your arm. It has to do with the stability of your core. So if you're getting much stronger in your core, you can have more torque generation to throw the ball further without having to do anything to your arm. So I think the strategy should be that when you're playing a sport and devoting a lot of time to it, whether at the professional level or not, you still should be focusing the majority of your strength training and conditioning work towards your overall balanced physique, trying to get strong across your entire body. Let the skill work be the skill work. And if you want to focus, there are certainly few things, we mentioned a couple when we were at the gym yesterday, but a few things that specific athletes can do to improve their specific skill. And that's fine. And it's from a strength training perspective. And that's fine. Like maybe more forearm work if you're having to swing a racket or a bat, right? That's fine. That can be done in addition to your basic core lifting. But to go back to the days where the strength training was basically replicating the motions of the sport, especially nowadays where you've got athletes who never stop playing their sport. It's young athletes. They're playing baseball year round through all these fall leagues and winter leagues. And like, there's way too much repetition of the same movement pattern. And that doesn't end well, because you can see what's happening these days with pitchers. Like, it's almost a rite of passage. How many years are they going to be able to pitch before they have to have a Tommy John surgery?
What is the Tommy John surgery?
The ulnar collateral ligament, basically being replaced, or it tears in their elbow. They're out for an entire season. But it's like, some of these pitchers, it's like they want to get it done early so they can hopefully come back and then have a string of years where they can dominate. It's crazy, but I think a lot of it is coming from a lot of overuse, a lot of repetition, not enough moving into other sports and movement patterns to balance off the strains and stresses that they're doing in that sport, their chosen sport, and it's causing a lot of avoidable stress that, again, just fixing it through a more managed, well-balanced approach in the weight room is probably key number one.
It's interesting. That's not the answer I expected, but really cool to hear that. So doing the classic all-around weight training, squats, some deadlifts.
The goal should be to strengthen your body, to improve your flexibility everywhere. If you're talking about, let's say, a situation with a pitcher where you have hypermobility of your shoulder because your throwing requires a lot more range of motion than a non-throwing shoulder. You don't have to say, well, I'm mobilizing my shoulders now, so I have to do a lot of mobility work on my throwing shoulder. That might not be necessary. In some cases, you might want to not do that because it's already mobile enough because of the skill work. So it's not like a broad, you do everything you do here, you do there on each side. You might want to actually steer away from some of the things that you're repetitively using in the sport itself. But from a strengthening standpoint, you'll never go wrong sticking to the core lifts, building up your strength in those core lifts, and bilaterally strengthening your body and your balance and your coordination and your explosivity and your power. You're not going to go wrong. That does transfer back over to the sport itself. People think that it has to be in this sport specific motion to transfer back over there. That's not true.
One thing I noticed yesterday when we were training, as well as in your videos, is that whenever you have the opportunity to do a movement standing as opposed to seated, you'll do that. Whenever you have the opportunity to stagger your stance a bit, not fully lunging, but offset your stance a bit, you'll do that. And then you also talked about, even on a dumbbell curl, leaning a bit toward the side that you're curling up, assuming you're doing alternating dumbbell curls, can be very useful. Would you sort of explain the general logic for that? And then maybe we can touch into a few of the specific examples.
I have a phrase: if you want to look like an athlete, you have to train like an athlete, right? And what that really means is, like, sure, people might want to look